What's up, y'all, and welcome to Second and 15, a Philadelphia Eagles fan podcast presented by Old City Sports Network, the best sports network for all your Philadelphia needs. This is your host, Michael Roscoe. We got one team trying to ban the Eagles' brotherly shove, what's with the situation with the post-Super Bowl White House visit, and what to look for in this week's upcoming NFL Combine. All that and more are coming up. So without further ado, let's dive right into that Eagles news. First bit of Eagles news is a roster move, as the Eagles have signed running back Lew Nichols to the active roster. Nichols had been on the Eagles practice squad on and off like 6 or 7 times over the 2024 season. Now, could this be a sign that Kenneth Gainwell is out the door, or is this purely a depth signing? What do y'all think? In other news, former Eagles offensive tackle Jason Peters officially retiring from the NFL after about 20 or so years in the league. Honestly, hearing that out loud is pretty crazy. Peters was with the Eagles from 2009 to 2019, including that Super Bowl win in 2018. However, due to injury, he did not play in that championship matchup. After his departure from the Eagles, he landed with Dallas and finally with Seattle, where age and injury had caught up with him, diminishing his playing time and his roster stability. But nonetheless, Peters is likely a future Hall of Famer, and it was awesome to get to see him on the Eagles for so many years. Congrats on retirement, JP, and we wish you the best of luck as a veteran mentor in the Seattle Seahawks front office. The Combine week is here, and on Tuesday, nearly all the league's GMs, front offices, scouts, etc. spoke in conferences regarding the Combine and the upcoming 2025 season. Eagles GM Howie Roseman, when asked about Myles Garrett, stated, quote, "I won't talk about another team's player who's under contract, but I can assure there won't be an available free agent that we won't take a look at." There's been hints at the potential release of Josh Sweat during free agency, with the potential of getting an all-pro caliber level player such as Myles Garrett. ESPN's Jeremy Fowler claims that the Eagles are a potential, quote, "big threat at acquiring Myles Garrett," citing the need for an edge rusher if Sweat does depart in free agency, if we lose Brandon Graham to retirement, as well as the notion that Howie Roseman would want to keep Garrett away from going to a divisional rival / NFC contender in the Washington Commanders, which the possibility of that has, I feel like, slightly increased, not guaranteed, but increased. On paper, all that makes sense to me, because Sweat, he is a great player, but he's only had one double-digit sack season in his 7 seasons with the Eagles. Now, of course, I will not discredit his Super Bowl performance because I think he did fucking awesome there. However, Myles Garrett is tied at 2nd overall for the most sacks entering the league since 2017. Now, Garrett is 29, but that doesn't stop him from being one of the most dominant, game-wrecking defensive linemen in the league that we've seen. Sweat's base salary last year was the highest of his career at just over $1.12 million, along with $8.3 million at signing, equating to $10 million over the year contract. Now, letting Sweat go would for sure, at the very least, save $10 million, since that's what his contract was worth, and possibly as high as like $16 or $20 million. If we were to give that kind of money on a guy to the closer side of 30 years old, I would want to see somebody like Myles Garrett or Max Crosby get signed. Now, this doesn't necessarily mean I don't like Josh Sweat. I really do love Josh Sweat. I wish we could keep him. I'm just simply approaching this from a hypothetical business standpoint. One NFL team has submitted a formal petition to have the Eagles' famous brotherly shove, like the shirt I'm wearing right now, or tush push, or whatever you want to call it, banned from the league. Initially, the submitting team was made anonymous. However, it wasn't anonymous for long, as Diana Rossini tweeted out on Monday that it was the Green Bay Packers that filed the complaint or petition, whatever you want to call it. According to the Eagles Wire, the Eagles ran the tush push about 2 or 3 times against the Packers in the 2024 season, and they stopped it, I think, at least twice or so. Now, I get it. Ever since the play has picked up on use and popularity, other teams have had a really hard time stopping it or just could not stop it, so they're trying to get it banned. Falcons head coach Raheem Morris and Bills head coach Sean McDermott have joined the list of disgruntled, butthurt coaches who want the play to be banned, and they claim it's for safety reasons. However, it's just an adapted quarterback sneak. Plus, the team who used the brotherly shove the most behind the Eagles was the fucking Buffalo Bills in the 2024 season. So that is just textbook hypocrisy coming from Sean McDermott. If anything is unsafe about this play, it is the other team's defenses literally diving headfirst over the offensive line, shout out Frankie Louvu, to try to stop it. According to the league rules, you're allowed to push a player like you would in a mall if you've ever watched rugby. You just can't pull a player into the end zone. So the tush push isn't not illegal by any of those standards. The offensive linemen are not diving at the defensive player's knees. They're just getting low and pushing. I feel like, I'm like Patrick from SpongeBob, take Bikini Bottom, push it somewhere else. That's literally the tush push. Teams only want to ban it because they cannot do it the way that the Eagles can. We recently saw it with Buffalo and them not having success with it in the AFC Championship game. Plus, we've seen countless other attempts by other teams who try the play, the majority of which, if not damn near all, are unsuccessful. If a play is completely legal, it should be allowed. Just because your butt hurt because you can't do it doesn't mean it should be banned. Now, I get it. If I were a fan of a different team and I saw the tush push succeeding against my team, I'd be annoyed at it as well. However, it's not logical to ban a play because other teams and their fans are bitching and moaning that they cannot do it without any actual evidence of the play violating any NFL rules or the league deeming it unsafe, neither of which is the case. Deadass, we all know if other teams could do it, they would 100% be doing it. The amount of time these coaches and administrations have spent bitching about the brotherly shove could have been used to trying to figure out a way to stop it, but that's just my 2 cents. In other Eagles news, nothing official had been reported yet, but rumors were circling around that the Eagles have declined the post-Super Bowl invite to the White House. However, according to Adam Schefter, as of Monday evening, Eagles sources said, quote, "The Eagles plan on visiting the White House if they are invited and look forward to receiving an invitation." This came after reports circulating around the Eagles organization that an insider had stated in a meeting between players and the front office that it would be a, quote, "massive no" to go if invited by the Trump administration to the White House. When the Birds won the bowl in 2018, their invite to the White House was canceled by the Trump administration, primarily due to political differences in standing for the national anthem before games. And I can't recall, but I think since then, other than like the last couple of years or so, there hasn't been a visit. Now, it's widely known that owner Jeffrey Lurie is one of the more progressive owners and has morals and ideologies that differ from your classic conservative ones. Personally, I understand that it's been a thing for a while that winning teams go to the White House, get a tour, all that shit. However, right now, this country is so fucking politically divided, it's not even funny. And I think a team does not have to go to the White House, especially with a president that the majority of that team or organization may not see eye to eye with. Besides, it wasn't blatantly obvious, but Trump on TV hinted at the idea that he was supporting the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. So, why would a team want to go somewhere where the host was actively rooting against them? But anyway, this whole White House visit thing is really a lose-lose situation for a team, no matter what team it is, because all teams have conservative fans and liberal fans. So whether the Eagles go or not, people will be upset with the decision either way. You can't please everyone. Sports are one of the few things in this world that unite people of all different races, genders, religions, sexual orientations, political opinions, and more. Can we not fuck that up by making sports more political than people have already been trying to do? All right, shifting topics. We're going to talk about the NFL Combine. So, today is the first day of the NFL Combine, where if you remember from last week's episode / those who are newly getting into American football, this is a multi-day event where prospective college football athletes who are looking to be drafted into the NFL show off their skills to organizations and scouts. Today is the first day and probably the day I will be paying the most attention to, because personally, with all the defensive free agents that we have this year, there are some key positions that I believe we should focus on in the Combine to potentially look at draftees for, and those are defensive tackle, defensive end or edge rusher, and interior linebacker. Now, it is helpful to have a good amount of depth at any position. However, based upon the circumstances of this year's free agency, in my personal opinion, these three positions are top priority. Starting with defensive tackle, on the roster so far, you got Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, Milton Williams, Moro Ojomo, and Thomas Booker IV. We technically do have Byron Young, but he's been on IR, and I have no idea what the extent of that is. It is very possible we could lose Milton Williams in free agency. Plus, Howie Roseman has a history of building up the trenches. Now, obviously, Jalen and Jordan aren't going anywhere. Moro Ojomo still on a rookie deal. And then you do have Thomas Booker, who is young and can be promising. He's done pretty well for us this year. However, the Eagles could possibly waive him if they choose so to leave a wide open spot for a fresh young defensive tackle. According to CBS Sports, the top 5 players in the defensive line position for the upcoming draft to look out for in this combine are Mason Graham out of Michigan, Walter Nolan out of Ole Miss, Shamar Stewart out of Texas A&M, Derek Harmon out of Oregon, and Kenneth Grant out of Michigan. With our first pick in the draft being the 32nd overall pick, it is very unlikely that we'll land guys like Graham and Nolan, whose overall draft ranks out of all the positions are 3rd and 17th in this upcoming draft. It's more likely that we could possibly land guys like Stewart, Harmon, or Grant, whose overall draft ranks are 23rd, 29th, and 30th overall. One name that's also been thrown around is Toledo's Darius Alexander. His overall draft rank is 45th, so personally that might be a little steep for me for a first round pick, but he is someone the Birds could look out for in round 2 if he slides down the draft. Next, shifting over to edge rusher. Now, I know there's lots of talk about potential walking away for Josh Sweat, a potential free agent signing, considering we just talked about all that. But let's say the Eagles decide to look at the draft for the next top edge rusher. Now, currently, the top 5 edge rushers going into this combine and draft are Abdul Carter out of Penn State, Jalen Walker out of Georgia, James Pierce Jr. out of Tennessee, Michael Williams out of Georgia, and Mike Green out of Marshall. Their prospective draft ranks in order are 2nd, 9th, 10th, 16th, and 18th. Now, I already know we're not going to get Abdul Carter. We're way too far down the draft. Other teams are in need of edge rushers, and some analysts look at Carter as the number 1 overall pick in this draft, so it would be dumb for him to slide that far down enough to us. But notice there are 2 Georgia Bulldogs in this top 5 group in Walker and Williams. If these guys slide down the draft and the Birds do decide to build up a young edge group, they could look at these 2. So I'm going to pay attention to them. However, I have seen a few different mock drafts where the Eagles land James Pierce Jr. out of Tennessee. Pierce is a whopping 6'5", which is very tall, 243 pounds, which some people might see as slightly undersized mass-wise for this position. Some of his strengths include his explosive rush off the snap, his ability to get quick separation from the offensive lineman, and his overall speed. However, some areas of weakness include breakdown in space and deficits in swipe strength, according to NFL.com. This is a position I'll be sure to keep an eye out throughout the combine. And finally, the third personal priority position to look out for in this combine is interior linebacker. Eagles fans, including myself, would love nothing more than to see Zach Bond back in an Eagles uniform for multiple years. Historically, the Eagles do not tend to pay out linebackers, but after Zach Bond's immaculate 180 from special teamer in New Orleans to All-Pro Super Bowl champion in Philly, this may sway Howie to look differently. Regardless whether Bond stays or goes, we are lacking in healthy depth at the position. Currently, we have Zach Bond, Nakobe Dean, Oren Burks, Jeremiah Trotter Jr., and Ben Van Sumeren. With Dean's injury, the fact that Bond and Burks are current free agents, and Ben Van Sumeren's injury / his more hybrid fullback linebacker role, we don't know what could be in store for this position in 2025. And the Eagles could look at finding an interior linebacker in the draft if they choose to not go with a veteran one in free agency. Currently, the top 5 players at interior linebacker are Jihad Campbell out of Alabama, Carson Schweisinger out of UCLA, Barrett Carter out of Clemson, Smael Mondon out of Georgia, and Chris Paul Jr. out of Ole Miss. Now, I would personally not draft in this position in the first round, considering these guys' overall draft ranks are 21st, 51st, 92nd, 99th, and 112th. Any of these guys could easily be acquired in later rounds, but I'll keep a lookout for this position to see how these guys perform and if we can find a diamond in the rough, if you will, in later rounds. Looking at various mock drafts, I've also seen guys like safety Malachi Starks out of Georgia, wide receiver Luther Burden III out of Missouri, offensive tackle Ariante Urser out of Minnesota, and offensive lineman Gray Zabel out of North Dakota State, as well as some of the guys we just talked about as potential picks for Eagles at pick 32. Now, I will take a look at all these guys throughout the combine and see how talented they are. Personally, I don't think we should look at receivers in the first round, if at all. But nonetheless, we could always look at these types of guys with potential upside for the future and kind of draft into the future. I'll go more into draft opinions as we get closer to that date, though. All right, y'all, that is it for this week's episode. Thank you all for joining us. Don't forget to like, subscribe, or follow us on YouTube, X, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok by searching at Second and 15. That's 2NDAND15, or by the full name Second and 15, a Philadelphia Eagles fan podcast. You can find the audio for each and every single episode releasing Thursday mornings on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Player FM, Pocket Casts, or wherever you get your podcasts. This episode, Second and 15, and Old City Sports Network are sponsored by Righteous Felon Craft Jerky. Head on over to righteousfelon.com, use promo code OCSN for 15% off the best jerky around. They have awesome flavors like OG Hickory, Soul Survivor, Darth Garlic, and more. Orders over $50 get free shipping. We're also sponsored by Warlord Beard Oil. Head on over to warlordbeardoil.com and use promo code OLDSPORTS in all caps for 15% off your beard oils, washes, and many other beard care products. Orders over $75 will get free shipping. We're also brought to you by SeatGeek. Download the app and use promo code Old City Sports Network, all one word, for $20 off your first purchase. We also got some local sponsors such as Robert Hangholt Construction. If you're in the greater Philadelphia region and you need some work done with your roof, your windows, you need new siding, you want to build a deck, whatever you need, call the #1 contractor in the area at 610-348-1066 to get a free estimate on your next home project today. We're also brought to you by Decals by Aaron. For all your Delco products and merchandise, head on over to decalsbyaaron.com, your #1 spot for everything Delco. We're also brought to you by Iron and Steel Threads. Head on over to ironsteelthreads.com, use promo code OldCity10 in all caps for 10% off the entire website, and a portion of the proceeds will go to benefit youth hockey organizations. Don't forget to check out oldcitysports.com and click that merchandise tab to find some awesome 2nd and 15 merchandise. T-shirts, hoodies, whatever you can think of, it's there. Go check it out today. Once again, thank you all for joining in. This is 2nd and 15, a Philadelphia Eagles fan podcast presented by Old City Sports Network. We'll see y'all next week where we will review what we saw out of the combine and some potential players the Eagles could be looking at for April's draft. See y'all next time. Don't forget to stay fly like an eagle, and as always, go Birds!